Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for True show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for True show. It's a pleasure to be back with you again tonight. And I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. Tonight, we're actually going to do another segment with a prolific humanitarian, caring, prosperous, professional human being. And we could go on and on. I think we could use the entire dictionary. Dr. Paul Infante Moñozca, who runs so many different enterprises, was on our show. And this is now the second part. I think probably there'll be many more parts, but for now, we'll begin with the second segment on his world, financial, technological, and corporate activities, and more importantly, his visions. He really has a lot of foresight and zest for life. And so, if we can, Buddha, let's bring him up live. We've introduced him to our viewers before, so no further introduction is necessary. Let's bring up and bid a warm welcome to Dr. Paul Infante Moñozca to A Time for True show. Welcome.
Hey, Dr. Ben, it's good to see you again. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always an honor to be with you. Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. After going through professional school, speaking in different institutions across the world, I can recognize when I'm supposed to do something. And I thought if I was going to be allowed to continue this program, I better have you back on. And so, because the viewers really enjoyed, you're very natural, you're very easygoing, but you're prolific. And so, I want to use all the time because the last show we had flew by. So we're going to get right to it because there's so much I know that you have to offer. And the first thing I want to ask you is because you were a member or are a member of the American and British Chambers of Commerce in Singapore and the Forbes Conference Circle since 2005. So I think it's very important that with your professional outlook, what is your view of our current global economic climate?
Well, I think that we live in unprecedented time. What we thought would happen in the next 25 to 50 years is happening today. And for us to be able to understand it and address it, we need to take a certain level of steps back, because the technology today is a component which actually confuses humanity rather than enables it to prosper. I've developed a certain level of expertise looking beyond AGI, artificial general intelligence. And that is, I think, the area which humanity as a whole has to focus on. We are enthralled to be able to look into how AI is evolving, how it affects us, but we cannot foresee the repercussions of it and how we can address it. Um, Everything we hear are job losses. Everything we hear are competitions against the major AI players. What we don't hear is what's going to happen and how we are going to address it. So I think that among everything that is happening in the world, it makes me fall off my seat for trillions and trillions of dollars to be poured into technology which replaces humanity rather than put a few hundreds of billions to be able to, let's say, become self-sufficient in food or be able to understand what humanity needs today. Um, it's just too much influence from several angles. It's too much for anyone to be able to digest. And we are trying our best to be able to strategically consolidate whatever assets is needed to be able to address it. It's a deep, deep past, present, and future of what's going on in our world, and I think that we should be able to make a difference if we become more cohesive globally. Your invitation to be able to uh, um, have a collaborative discussion on it, I think, is something which is really part of all the big steps that we're taking. Um, I think that, I'll stop there. I think people would understand what I mean when they read mainstream media, when they read, um, informal media, but those with the truth. I really feel that we are in a situation where there are so many things which are not valid today. So many things that are structured from government monetary systems to the way things work that needs to be revamped today. So um, let's see as we go along with your show, and let's see what can come out.
Well, absolutely. I think you're touching on a key point because it's not that the technology is harmful, it's that the integrity and the intention behind its usage and utilization, exactly like you said, is so on the mark what you're pointing to. And so but let's go one thing at a time so that the viewers can follow along with us. So the next point I wanted to look at, because you're a key investor in the Bank of Humanity, which is a central bank to autonomous regions. And I want to ask you, what crises do you feel particularly are facing third world nations and peoples?
If you just look at the figures, numbers don't lie. And if you want to take it at the top, you want to take it at how the monetary system really serves the people. And if you look at it from the emerging market economies, the third world countries, you'll find that only 10% of the population are banked. Only 10% have bank accounts. That is after 100 years. And that is something which really now everyone's aware about. And that is why you have alternative fund transfer platforms which are actually serving humanity in a much better way. So I think that we need to be able to take it from the top, and be able to see how wealth, because currently less than 1% controls 70% of the world's wealth. And so you got a couple of guys who just wants to play golf one day, or they're just going to shut off. There's no economy, right? It's an orchestrated economy. And every time normal people start asking the right questions, they are labeled as conspiracy theorists. Uh, this is something which will change very, very soon with AI, with AGI. And so for us to be able to have real change in our lives, especially for the challenges which emerging economies and third world experience every day, it has to be taken up from the top, the monetary system, and then everything else can follow.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And the figure that you bring out is really astounding, because that's not what would be promoted. And it almost would seem like the world had this big banking structure, but it's interesting how we have more of humanity in collaboration. And as you said, I'm in agreement with you that we should do more investing, even in our policies, even aside from economics, just in protocols and programs, obviously are impacted by economic support, but so that we actually move in the direction of collaboration and resource management and economics of job creation, and so people can have morale. So I wanted to ask you, because you have a very interesting mantra in your foundation, your Moñozca Foundation, and I want to have you speak about this a little bit as we're talking about economics in the world. Your mantra is impact humanity.
Yeah,
Tell us a
so
little bit about that.
so we've positioned ourselves as a philanthro-capitalist advocate, and or a venture philanthropy fund. And usually it's not for the faint-hearted, because you have to be able to have returns, which has a balance between the subjective value of how it continues world peace and how it is able to impact the lives of people, as opposed to pure profit. So it is not something that I think the majority of funds would do. But I think that's the route that we took based on the history of our family office. We have moved into areas which no one ever thought of would be critical to protecting the existence of humanity. And we have seen from ground up, and if only people could see what I see, the people are now losing hope with what's going on. And once you have the majority of people losing hope, there needs to be a driving force to uplift everyone again and correct everything. So we are embracing AI in a big way, but we want to ensure that AI would serve humanity, not replace it.
Exactly.
So we need to be able to, we need to be able to get all the bridges that we can build, so that the educational process of the singularity era needs to be communicated to the people. Last year, we educated close to 30,000 people, and I think we're proud of that, considering we are a private entity. without um, without government support. Really, I mean, we just organize on our own and make sure that they understand how things work. We've increased investments with a fintech platform and re-engineered it to become a bank for the people, and it's gone to exponential growth. And when you say exponential growth, that's where it shows that what we're doing resonates with the people. And I think it's a model which replicates by itself. That's the beauty about it. You bring it anywhere in the world, it replicates by itself. Um, Consider it as a modern day Noah's Ark. And I think that there's so much more to do. And I think that even this case where we're brought together, is something I think that um, a lot of our prayers are being answered. Just basically, yeah.
I really agree with you, and I see that, as you were saying, is that one of the things that's so important that we overlook, when I say we, I don't mean you and I, but I think in the world, there's really nothing wrong with our advancements. The problem is the advancement of man's integrity, the advances of man's humanity, the advances of man's realization that he's a man. I think sometimes people lose sight because there's so much given and provided to all of us. We have communication systems, internet, food supply chains. We have airplane travel. We have television. We have heating and cooling in many parts of the civilized world, right? And I think, as you said, unfortunately, it's controlled by a few, and those few have so much that I think they've lost sight of the reality that if the farmer stopped farming, that everything else would stop, that we all as human beings need to eat and to sleep at some point, and more of an appreciation of that. So I really appreciate someone like you in the banking field, in the corporate field, who has scaled to large levels and heights and realizes that the wealth that we have on this planet is the wealth of humanity, and that the wealth of money comes from the production of what? Of humanity. And, I'm so happy that we're going to have this UN conference on this. And what I want to ask you is, with, you providing, your idea, you have an idea of providing income support to over 1 billion people by 2045. And I wanted you to go over that a little bit, because as you gave the other figure of how few have bank accounts, and we look at third world economics, obviously having them have some income would lead to actually a global prosperity and growth. But tell me about that idea that you have about this.
So we've increased our investments in the fintech platform. We've re-engineered it to become a central bank for autonomous regions. The licenses of that are derived from the autonomous regions and selected areas in the world. We're playing a role to be able to provide subsidy to what's about to happen. There will be tremendous job losses. It is not true that AI is just going to make everyone rich. That's not true at all. I think it's there more to enslave people, because for you to be able to ask an AI, okay, maybe that's free, but the energy which is needed for that, and then they're introducing the hardware for that, which are the humanoids and the robotic side of it, to replace even what humans do. So it's not true that it's just going to make anyone rich. You need to buy that, and that costs $50,000. That's not an amount which is going to be doled out easily in emerging economies. Right? But there is what you call the concept and enforcement of decentralization. So decentralization is going to happen as AI controls the world. It will decentralize every single function and decision making. It is not something even governments can stop. I think everyone were given the chance to slow it down. Instead of slowing it down, they thought that they could become rich by stepping on the gas pedal and pouring trillions to it. And so what has happened now is now you have a full-blown AGI moving into super intelligent AI, and it's going to replace a lot of functions. And so to be able to mitigate that, you need to provide subsidy to the human race. If you talk about subsidy, and just to be clear, because there's a lot of misperceptions on the subsidy, thinking that it's communism. The definition of communism is you give money to people, and let's say they don't work or are equal in status. It's not even there. It's just to provide subsidy. And so the concept of government-run universal basic income, which has had its failures in the past, needs to now be replaced by a universal basic income, which is private sector led. And that's what we're doing. It's a private sector led universal basic income where family offices, foundations, autonomous regions, everyone which wants to pledge and contribute its assets for the benefit of humanity goes now to our program. And so we've been doing that quietly for so many years. I think we've come to a level where there are enough assets to be able to provide the subsidy worldwide. In the US, we've been told that the universal basic income concept has to be rebranded because of some political branding. And we said, okay, well, we came up, some of our custodians came up with a statement. It said, okay, we are going to call it a dividend for humanity. So I think it's something interesting. The concept of stopping people to beg. There are so many ways people beg. And I think the begging has to stop. People now have to be able to understand that the technology enables us to peg the resources to the currency. And so instead of begging, they now have a dividend, which can be directly in their pockets. I think I am one of many which shares that view that there needs to be very urgent transitional change in the way people understand the monetary system and how they should benefit from it today so that we can enforce and close up an area of peace for the future. And a lot of that has to do with us educating them. And I think we've seen clusters of people, as long as they are educated, they flourish from there. We have to invite more and more countries, especially ARs, autonomous regions, to be able to take these steps. There is so much layers to learn from, and we just want to summarize it for the people. We want the people to have a program that they can go to. We've had a lot of the success stories already. A lot of the technology which was previously used in a wrong way, so everyone's talking about trading. So if you talk about digital assets, they say digital assets trading. Digital assets trading is grade school stuff. We use the technology to evolve into currencies which can provide stable subsidies to the people. And it has nothing to do with cryptocurrency trading or, and to prove my point is very simple. Each and every single exchange which handles cryptocurrencies are run by bots. Those are fake values. It's a scam. There is nothing there that humanity can look forward to. We need to use the technology to evolve into currencies backed by the physical assets. So if you're a crypto player and you think that you just hit it just because you issued some cheap tech, that's not going to work for you. You have to have the community reach. You need to invest in the educational process of the people. You need to have ecosystems, and you need the assets backing it. If you don't have that, there's nothing there. That's not the way the technology is used. And I think that other financial instruments should also evolve, not just digital assets. I think insurance needs to evolve into the new economy. And it's not just about tokenizing it. It needs to evolve into new products which protect people. I think even bonds, stocks, that needs to evolve. When you talk about how it evolves, that does not mean that you understand the tokenization process or the underwriting process. You need to understand how you can re-engineer the product so that it can serve humanity as a whole. So people are looking at it in the wrong way. We admire the U.S. president's stand on creating a crypto council. But our take into it is they're all tech players. There are no asset players there. You need a crypto council of companies like BlackRock, of the Bank of Humanity, and other asset players. The tech players come in second. So they would have to justify to the asset players why their tech should be used. And if you really look at that, the due diligence process has to be extensive by being able to really validate if those players are asset players which the people can use for their currencies. And so I think that's where you see that there are just too much confusion in the world today. And it's sad to see YouTube videos of showing that just because you bought a certain digital asset, you drive a Ferrari, you have mansions, and if you really look at that, it's a rented Ferrari and it's a rented mansion for the day. We need to move back to reality, put our efforts into how the technology should be used in the right way, being able to educate the people, and get government support. And hopefully they see it that way. Now, I may have just stated some very controversial statements there, but it's going to be very difficult to go up against those statements because that's the truth. And that is why we always advocate the truth.
Well, you know what? I laud you that you're a man of principle and ethic. And when we look at the simplicity of sports, you can't get on the starting team unless you can produce. When we look at the simplicity of life, we need to be able to have food to survive, and we have to bring it to our families, and our wives provide the homes and the crucibles and the discipline. And that civilization, as you said very appropriately, are we working for mankind? Or are we working for the disappearance of our race of mankind? And sometimes there are funny videos of the animals looking and speaking to each other as if they would speak in language of ours. They speak in their own language. And it's very interesting how the animals say, well, mankind is crazy. Thank God we're going to get rid of them soon. Or they say, no, you know what? They're getting rid of themselves soon. Don't worry. And we'll inherit the planet. Instead of Planet of the Apes, it'll be Planet of the Animals. And with robots, maybe, that will work for the animals, because the animals may be brighter than we. And but Paul Moñozca, it's a pleasure to have you. It's very comforting to know that you exist in the world. And for those of you watching the show, May 16th, the United Nations, Mr. Moñozca will be speaking. Yours truly will be there. We've organized this Time for Truth conference. And let's pay heed to what he said today at the end of the show. Let's realize how we need each other to survive, to exist. Basic truths that have nothing to do with pictures on the internet, as he said. And let's take a look at the fact of that if we don't do something, it will not happen, because you can see what's happened over the years. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. Always a pleasure. I want to congratulate you for a fantastic show, which really opens the eyes of people, and you as a mentor to everyone. I hope that our world would have more people like you, definitely, and people like myself. We're just happy to be part of one of your fingers in your hand. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for the tremendous compliment. Thank you, and thank all of you out there. We'll take Mr. Moñozca's comment, and I'm going to thank all of you, because of you, these lights are on. Because of you, I'm able to sit here nice and warm. Because of you, someone made this jacket for me and this microphone. Let's not forget the wealth of mankind and why God created us in the first place. We know you've enjoyed the show. Tune in again next time for our next episode of A Time for Truth show. Have a very good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet